Welcome, everyone, to the Chad Harberts Show. Chad, this week you're going back and forth between Cedar Falls and Des Moines, aren't you? Or Grundy Center, I should say.
I think all three, to be honest. I think Cedar Falls, Grundy Center, and Des Moines. Yeah, down there yesterday for a game and a half. I saw the Ducks and girls play, and I saw the first half of St. Ansgar because we own the Mason City paper as well, and we had a reporter down there. Back down. I'm in Grundy Center today, back down to Des Moines tomorrow for Denver and Dunkerton in the semifinals.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Hey, let's start with the girls. What have you seen so far? And
when we talked last week, we talked about how approximately 35 of the 40 teams, the 8 in each bracket, about 35 of them were legitimate best team in their class throughout the year. There wasn't a lot of surprises to be had in the state tournament. And I think as you look at it, at least so far, it's played out that way. If you start in 5A, seeds 1, 2, 3, and 5 advance to the semifinals. Ankeny beat Cedar Rapids, Washington, the 4 seed to get there. And then you look at what happened today, which is number 1, Johnston, moving on to this championship game like they have the last few years. And Waukee Northwest, 3 seed, beating Dowling Catholic in overtime this afternoon to move on to the state championship game. Not a big surprise. They split their season series this year. So that game could have gone either way, but basically you've got chalk in the 5A class with number 1 seed, number 3 seed. And I think when you look at that, I think Waukee Northwest has probably played Johnston the best of anybody all year. They lost by 6 both games. They have some serious star power in their own right. They've got a D1 girl. They got a D2 girl on the roster. Certainly they've got some players. I think Waukee Northwest can give Johnston a game, because the only surprise I've seen so far in 5A is I thought Johnston might have some wider margins in these first 2 games. And they did win by 24 in the first game, but they beat Ankeny today by 10. I think that the gap between Johnston and the rest of 5A is closing. I don't know if Waukee Northwest can get there when they play on tomorrow, but I think they have the best chance to get there out of all the teams in 5A. They played 10 times now going into tomorrow. Johnston's won all 10. But again, I think Waukee Northwest has the best shot at knocking Johnston off the throne.
Yeah, Chad, I would add, I saw that game in person at Waukee Northwest, that 6-point game. And there was about 4 minutes to go, and Northwest was ahead. Jenica Lewis put it on at the end to make it 6, but that game was a lot tighter. So although they haven't been able to get over the hump, they gave them 2 very good games. I think that gives a chance of an upset.
Absolutely. I think, and you get the familiarity, the CIML and a bunch of girls who play the same kind of AAU circuit, if not on the same teams. You got so much familiarity. I think that's why Waukee Northwest has closed the gap as well as anybody in 5A.
Yep. What about the rest of the classes? What do you?
Let's see. We got 3A going on right now. That was chalk from the first round. 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds all advanced. Mount Vernon and Maquoketa and Des Moines Christian and Wahlert Catholic. And I think when you look at those 4 teams, I just don't see a lot of surprises in the next round either. I think Mount Vernon is still head and shoulders above everybody else. I know Wahlert Catholic's had a pretty good season. Very good team. They play up quite a bit division-wise, so they have some experience with that. But I just think Mount Vernon is just head and shoulders above everybody else in 4A. Maquoketa Des Moines Christian should be a pretty good game. Maquoketa has played well all year. I would not be surprised if that becomes a 1 versus 2 game in the state championship game tomorrow with Mount Vernon and Maquoketa being there. Des Moines Christian winning that 2-3 game over Maquoketa would be a minor upset. I think it'd be a bigger upset if Wahlert Catholic somehow knocked off Mount Vernon, because I just think Mount Vernon is playing such great basketball throughout this year. I think it's just their tournament to lose, which is what we said a week ago, that we thought the 1 seed could go all the way.
Yeah, I would concur. I watched the Mount Vernon first round game, and they just look as advertised.
They're very good. So certainly I think we're going Mount Vernon this afternoon. We'll see how that shakes out over the next couple of hours. They moved to 4A, which is taking place a little bit later tonight. Dallas Center Grimes and Norwalk, 2 seed versus 3 seed. Bishop Heelan, undefeated 1 seed, taking on Carlisle, who's 24-1. Carlisle beat up Clear Creek Amana pretty good in that quarterfinal matchup. But again, Bishop Heelan, I think, is the best in this bracket. It's whether the 1 seed. I do think if Dallas Center Grimes goes through, Dallas Center Grimes is a program where the girls have a lot of experience and success in multiple sports. And I think that always has to be a factor. It's a factor when you start looking at Waverly Shell Rock getting to the tournament, or you look at the Denver girls, or you look at the Dunkerton girls, or the St. Ansgar girls that are in multiple state tournaments. I think that experience factor playing in multiple state tournaments and multiple sports is big. So if this goes 1 versus 2, and we'll know later on tonight where it's Dallas Center Grimes and Bishop Heelan, I think that would be a fantastic matchup on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I would agree. And Chad, I would say that if Dallas Center Grimes gets there, it's certainly going to be a home court advantage for them because that entire town is going to show up. And I think that gives them a better chance because it's almost going to be like a quasi home game.
Yeah, I saw them travel to state soccer in Ames, and it was unreal how many people they brought to state soccer. They really do travel well for their sports.
Yep. What other classes you want to talk about?
The Class 2A, we've got on the one half of the bracket, number 1 Hinton, defending state champs against number 4 seed Denver, which is what we expected. I thought of the 5 teams that I had down at the tournament, that Denver was the one most likely to go through past the quarterfinals, just based on how the matchups were. And they did that. They beat Emmitsburg, overcame a tough first half, played a really good, solid second half, especially down the stretch when they needed some baskets and some stops to keep Emmitsburg from coming back. Denver looked legit. On the bottom half of that bracket, it's number 2 seed Rock Valley. It's number 6 Trainer, who beat Central Lyon by 12 in the quarterfinals. So Trainer surprised there, but I think this bracket is more wide open than maybe any of the other 4 brackets, just because Hinton won by 1 point in the 1-8 game. They did not look as strong as they've looked in the past. And with Denver, it's the same thing we talk about Dallas Center Grimes. I talk about a lot with Denver, but that girls class, who are all now seniors, they have so much experience in the state tournament process. They won back-to-back state volleyball championships. They went to back state soccer title games and lost 2 times, but they've been there 2 times in a row. So many of those girls play all 3 of those sports. I think Denver has got enough firepower and definitely enough depth that they could upset Hinton. I don't know if it's going to happen, but Denver certainly has the pieces to beat Hinton. If they play their best game, they can win that game. Rock Valley and Trainer, and you know this, you followed basketball long enough, and it doesn't matter if it's NBA or college or high school or whatever. When you see that first round upset get to the second round, that favorite from the second round is now on high alert. So Rock Valley is going to be laser focused on, hey, Trainer thinks they're going to run the table. They think they're going to upset us too. We got to come with our best game. So I think Rock Valley will be ready for Trainer. It's a cool story, the Trainer boys and girls both being at the state tournament together. But I think Rock Valley goes through there. And then my heart wants Denver to get there just because it's in my local area. I've covered those girls through so many games the last couple of years. And I think they can beat Hinton. I don't know if they will, but I know they have the pieces to beat Hinton. And I think it'd be a cool story if Denver got to that state tournament game against probably Rock Valley and played for it all on Saturday.
The entire town of Denver would be shut down and in Des Moines for that game. That would be fun to see.
And it's funny because those girls, so many of them, basketball is not their best sport. Volleyball is their best sport. Most of them are going to college on volleyball scholarships, but they are really good basketball players. And if they can hit some 3-pointers, which is the key, you know what the 2 Mullahan sisters are going to do. You know what Channing Johnston is going to do. You know what Miley Thurm's going to do inside because she's 6'1". If 1 or 2 of Ackerson or one of those other 3-point shooters on the outside can get hot, Denver has a legitimate shot to win the entire state title in 2A.
Great. Where do you want to go next, Chad?
Class 1A, 1, 2, 3, and 5 went through. Bishop Garrigan had very little problems with Key in the first game there. I was down there for Dunkerton and Linville Sully, and the Dunkerton girls had told me a few days ago at the regional championship game, we have a plan to go further this year. But they ran into an undefeated Linville Sully team in the quarterfinals, and it just in retrospect, it looks like Linville Sully was a little bit more higher thought of based on their undefeated record than maybe the caliber of competition they were playing in the South Iowa Cedar League, because Dunkerton with their full court press, took Linville-Sully apart. That game was over in the first 3 minutes. They had to play the whole other 29, but that game was 12-3, 3 minutes in. And next thing you knew, Linville-Sully was down 20. Then they were down 30. And then the reserves finally came in and finished it off at 21. But Dunkerton looked every bit a team that had a plan to go to the state semifinals and then executed it. They had their press going full bore. I think Kylie Pexa had 8 steals in the game. They got a great effort from Ava Fueling, who's their third leading scorer. She averaged 7.5 points a game during the regular season. She scores 22 in this game. Haley Kipp has a double inside. Their 6-foot center. Dunkerton, if they can shoot it like that going forward, they should give Bishop Garrigan a pretty good game. And I think Bishop Garrigan's the best team in this class. But if Dunkerton can play tomorrow afternoon like they played yesterday afternoon, this could be a really good game. On the bottom half of that bracket, Newell Fonda and St. Albert. I think Newell Fonda is loaded. I think they have all that experience. They've been in the tournament all these years in a row, and those girls just know how to win. They beat St. Ansgar pretty convincingly in the first round. I think Newell Fonda goes through as the 2 seed in 1A. I personally, again, I would love to see Newell Fonda against Dunkerton, because then I have one more team down there. I have to go back for one more day. That'd be great. Bishop Garrigan could win that game as well. So I don't know what to expect there, but I do think Newell Fonda will be at the bottom half of that bracket. Let's just go Raiders. I'm a small town guy. I like the Dunkerton girls. They're cool kids. Love their coach. Love the way they play. I would love to see the Raiders go through.
Yeah, Chad, I'll join you, because yesterday we were having an interview on the Dr. Bowser show with Kayla Wasco, the co-college women's head coach, who is taking co to the NCAAs. And she's a Dunkerton legend. And she was on the broadcast saying, man, I can't go see my niece today because we got practice. She was super stoked about Dunkerton. And so for that reason, go Raiders.
On the other part of that Dunkerton win yesterday is her niece, Abby, who's a really good player, had a bit of an off game. I think she only scored 4 points. And she's a girl that can get hot quick and really fill it up. So you look at that score from yesterday, Dunkerton winning by 21. They did it with just their 5 starters scoring, and Abby Wasco really not having her best game. So if she goes to that next level and they get a little bit of bench help, they could be really good against Bishop Garrigan.
Yeah, that's great. So how do you want to close out on the girls before we move to the boys next week?
For me personally, I would love to see Denver and Dunkerton get through, just because they have 2 shots at state championships for the Northeast Iowa area. I think Johnston wins the 5A, but I just think it's going to be a really good game. I would not be surprised if it's very much like what you were talking about, which is Waukee Northwest is right in it until the very last minute. Mount Vernon, I think, runs away in 3A. 4 a little more open, but yeah, I think it's chalk at this point, even though I'd love to see Dunkerton and Denver get through.
Great. All right, so let's do a little preview for next week. We may talk about this more in depth on another show. But let's talk boys. All 5 classes are set. They kick off on Monday. You got how many teams here?
I've got 4 teams down there.
You're going to be about here every day of the week next week.
Yeah, I've got Cedar Falls on Monday, the overall #1 seed, and then 3 teams from the North Iowa Cedar League on Wednesday. I've got a triple header on Wednesday, and you're familiar with the power of 5A much more than I am. Cedar Falls is down there. And obviously Cedar Falls is legit, but the CIML is well represented, including Urbandale, who gets in with the upset of Ames. And I know Ames is down a player. I get that. But Urbandale getting in, who is the 4th best team in the CIML during the regular season. That's who Cedar Falls draws as the 1 seed in the first round. Now, I'll say this about the Tigers, and I was there Tuesday night. They took Linmar apart. They took them apart. They wore them down. And it's one of those games, and I've seen it a few times this year, but one of those games where Will Gertis scored, whatever he had, 20, 24, 26. He could have scored 50, like from last week. Will Gertis could have been that guy against Linmar. If they want to just keep giving him the ball, he was unstoppable. He was inside. He was shooting threes. He was in transition. They looked really good in a game where Jaden Kimbrough was not great. He wasn't bad, but not great. And in a game where there wasn't a lot of scoring from some of the complementary players, Cedar Falls drummed Linn-Mar. So that's a good sign for them going into the 5A tournament. Though when you get down there and there's 5 CIML teams and Waukee Northwest wants another shot at them, and you know how good Waukee is and how good Urbandale can be, it's going to be a very tough 5A tournament.
I think it's going to be fantastic. I think it's probably one of the better 1 through 8 5A, 4A. Sorry,
I know I said 5A too. Again, I do that all the time when I'm talking boys and girls.
Going from boys and girls is always hard, but I think it's one of the best 4A classes there is. Like, for example, Waukee Northwest is kicking off with Johnston, right? And you're from Northeast Iowa. Courtney Henderson is the head coach there. And it's almost like Steve McGraw's Waterloo East team is now in Johnston. They play that same style, that same patient, really good ball style. I'm like, is Cedric Robinson going to come out on the court? Is Courtney back out? Is Steve McGraw going to be sitting on the sideline? They're a great club. They've been on a roll. Urbandale's been on a roll. Dubuque Senior and Dowling Catholic. I mean, you've got Tevin Schultz, who I think can be effective inside. I think there's potentially upsets galore in that class.
There definitely is. I know Cedar Falls is still smarting over the loss to Waukee Northwest last year in the semifinals. And I'm sure Waukee Northwest is smarting over the loss in the championship game. So there's some teams down there with a chip on their shoulder from either last year's state tournament or things that have happened in season this season, including up and down the CIML, that there's going to be a lot of heated, just intense basketball in the 4A bracket.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really fun to watch. I'm not going to make a prediction yet. I'm sure we'll probably do that on a later show. But I think 8 great teams showed up. And I think 8 of the hottest teams in the state are all there.
3A, I'll leave to you guys because we don't have a lot of 3A coverage in this area. I know Ballard is very good. I've not seen them in person. I've seen a little bit of Solon this year. Yeah, I know they're pretty legit. But there's, just like we were talking about 4A, there's obviously 8 great teams there. I do think Ballard's the cream of the crop. But again, you've got some really top programs from around the state that are year in and year out type programs.
Yeah.
And whoever comes out of 3A is going to earn it because there's some really good competition there.
Yeah, I would agree. I get to see those teams quite a bit. If I had to pick one today, I would say 8AM is going to win. I know that's somewhat of a surprise.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be 8AM and Ballard. And I think Hudson Lorenzen is worth the price of admission, and they've got a great squad. So I'm going to lean 8AM over Ballard, but we'll get into that more as we do more shows.
Class 2A is where I'll be all day on Wednesday. North Iowa Cedar League, very well represented this year with Union Community, with Grundy Center, with Appleton Parkersburg. Cool side stories here. So Aaron Thomas, the head coach at Appleton Parkersburg, he took his oldest son and his middle son to the state tournament in 2021. The oldest son is Owen Thomas, who's now the head coach at Grundy Center.
Yeah.
And Aaron Thomas's previous stop, Union Community, he took that team to the 2008 state tournament where their star player was Eric Jesse, who's the head coach now at Union Community. So Aaron Thomas is connected to all 3 of these North Iowa Cedar League programs. And then you throw in Aaron and Owen Thomas are the first father-son duo in state history to each take a team to a state tournament the same year. And you throw in the fact that we can't prove it, but it's almost indisputable that Owen Thomas is probably the youngest head coach to ever take a team to the state tournament because he's still just 22 years old as the first-year head coach at Grundy Center.
Wow.
So lots of good little sidebars in this tournament. Now, adding all that, Kemper Catholic's probably the best team in the entire bracket. They're averaging 70-some points a game. They led 2A in scoring this year. But the team that was second in scoring this year is Union Community, who is their opponent in the first game. And Union's fast. Union is lightning fast. They're not waiting around for half-court offense. Whether you score or don't score, they're taking the ball the other way as fast as they can. The issue for Union, obviously, is their leading scorer, Caden Sorensen, broke his leg in the Grundy Center game, the regular season finale. He's out. Now, they do have 9 other seniors on that squad. They do have the state tournament experience from last year, plus Tate Van Dyke. Tate Van Dyke was a player at Hudson 2 years ago when they went to the state tournament to the semifinals. So they do have a lot of state tournament experience. It's a matter of, can you overcome Kemper Catholic, a bunch of those kids that won the football championship last fall and are all pretty good basketball players too, that score a ton of points. So that's going to be a tough game for Union. The one advantage I think Union has is they will run you. They'll run you for the whole 32 minutes. So you better be solid in your fundamentals and you better be solid in your transition defense, because they will score quick, even without their leading scorer. That's going to be a fun game to watch. That's a game that could be two teams of the 80s, two teams of the 90s. It really could. Trainer and Grundy Center in that 4-5 game, Grundy Center's 23-1. Their only loss was to Union in the regular season finale. Trainer experienced at the state tournament. It's going to be a tough matchup for Grundy Center, to be honest. The fact that they're back here after graduating all 5 starters, because Jed Jarofsky was coming off the bench player last year. The fact that Grundy Center is back here is a testament to how hard those bench guys worked a year ago and how much Owen Thomas, as their new coach, has meant to them this year. This 22-year-old kid, who, by the way, doesn't look 22. I was just with him this morning. I was with him and his dad this morning over at Parkersburg High School. And he really doesn't even pass for 22 years old, to be honest. He's a young-looking kid, but he's a heck of a basketball coach. That game could go either way. Everywhere I go, because I live in this town, they ask me, what do you think Grundy Center's chances are? And I'll say this about any team in the state tournament, boys or girls at any level. Stars get you to the state tournament. What wins state tournament games are two things: how you pay attention to the fundamentals and how much of a loss you get when your bench players have to come in. The deeper teams tend to win state. If your 6, 7, and 8 guy or girl doesn't drop off much from that 3, 4, or 5 starter that's coming out of the game for a minute or two, you've got a great shot to win state. When it gets down to 2A, because there's less kids that go out for basketball and there's less kids in the schools, that margin is so much tighter. Grundy Center is one of those teams that's got 5 strong, decent 6th man, and then 7 and 8 can play, but there's a discernible drop off there. They're good kids, they're good players, but it's not the same as having the starters in. And I think you can say the same thing about Appleton Parkersburg. You can say a little bit about Union now too. So that's the difference, is how big are those bench players going to be? Now, in the sub-state championship game for Grundy Center, Jace Frisley came off the bench and scored 11 points. He was a huge factor in that game. Was a very big factor. So there's a bench guy stepping in, and now there's no loss when somebody else goes to the bench for a few minutes. But you've got to have that 3 straight games in a state tournament to win it all. A star can carry you a ways, but your bench and your fundamentals are going to take you to a state tournament, a state title. So that's going to be interesting to see how deep Grundy Center and Trainer are in this game, because Grundy Center did get in a position at McLeod last week a couple times where they were stuck with just giving Judd the ball with 10 seconds to go in the shot clock and saying, do something here. And you don't want to get caught up doing that too often in a state tournament game. The bottom half of that bracket, Unity Christian and Western Christian, 2 solid programs playing one another. They're not far apart over there in Northwest Iowa. What are they, 8, 9 miles apart at the most?
Right next door.
So, yes, they know each other very well. And then the bottom half of the bracket, Regina Catholic is loaded as the 2 seed. Appleton Parkersburg is coming in hot for sure. They got Benny Waller back for the past 15 games. They've gone 14-1 over the last 15 games. He overcame a broken finger. They've got some decent underclassmen who are 3-point shooters. And as I said in the capsules I'm writing for the Courier this week, the X factor in that game, that Appleton Parkersburg Regina Catholic game, is that Appleton Parkersburg has a 6'5" freshman center who, if I went into ChatGPT and said, design a farm boy basketball player for me, this kid's picture would come up. He's got the big farm boy build. He demands the basketball. He's got an unbelievable little turnaround hook for a 14-year-old kid. And he is going to be a factor in this first round game against Regina Catholic. I know on paper, the 3 NICL teams are supposed to lose just based on the seedings, but all 3 have a chance to win. All 3 could very well win. And that 2A tournament is going to be interesting. And just the way these teams are made up, some newcomers and some experienced teams, some big rivalries. And of course, if for some reason Grundy Center and Union win, it's a rematch of the regular season finale. If Grundy Center and Appleton Parkersburg happen to go all the way, it's father versus son for the state championship. There's just some really cool stories in 2A.
That would be a great story. Yeah, I love what you said about Aaron and Owen being the only father-son duo to ever coach in the state tournament. I find that really interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the thing is, I'll take it one step further for you. Here's the real shocker. Because Owen's just been out of school now for a little over a year. He still lives at home in Parkersburg with his dad and his little brother, who's a senior on the AP team. Now Owen is in the process of buying a house and getting married and whatnot. But at this very moment, they also live together in Parkersburg. And of course, it's all the lineage of the great Ed Thomas, who's the longtime Parkersburg football coach. So there's so many cool stories kind of weaving through Class 2A.
I would say if they make it, what you want to do as a reporter is get an interview with Aaron's wife and Owen's mom. Is how she's going to be dressed is going to be worth the photo.
I was with the two of them this morning. We're working on a feature story. I was in Aaron Thomas's office. They were sitting side by side, one in AP gear, one in Grundy gear. And I talked to them about the dynamic. And the first thing Owen said to me was, I think my mom's taking it the hardest right now because it's tough. She's got a son on one team, her husband coaches one team, and her other son's the head coach of the other one. That's a tough go. Nobody in the history of state basketball in Iowa has ever had to go through that, except for Aaron Thomas's wife, Owen Thomas's mother.
That's a great story. Hopefully that happens. Not for her, but for the rest of the state. That'd be an all-time great story.
It would be very cool. And then Class 1A, the small class in Iowa, I'm just going based on just the scores I've seen all year. St. Edmund's been so good all year. Bishop Garrigan's been good. It's funny. There's a lot of private schools in here that are just unreal. Burlington Notre Dame, Marquette Catholic, St. Edmund. And you look at that and you just think of the caliber of competition that Bishop Garrigan tends to play, that St. Edmund tends to play. I just don't see how they don't end up together in the state championship game. Outside of Woodbine and Boyd and Hull, none of those other 6 teams have lost more than 3 games this year. They're all been really good. And those schools tend to play up, to play better competition, to get ready for this time of year. But that's one of those where I could see 1 and 2 just heading towards the state title game and meeting up there and battling it out that way.
Yeah, that's another one that has a great storyline. You got 2 teams from the same small town, Marquette, and if they both faced each other, wouldn't that be a great story?
That would be a tremendous story. Yeah, it's just those, the basketball, and you get down to 1A, you have these, wherever I go, you have these teams that are just frantic, fantastic 3-point shooters, because you're not going to get a bunch of 6'5", 6'8" kids in 1A. What you're going to get is a bunch of kids who can fill it up from anywhere behind the 3-point line. And so no lead is safe in a 1A game because the way those kids can shoot it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think boys is going to be a lot of fun. Girls has been a lot of fun. It's going to be, really interesting to see over the next couple days to see who comes out on top. But then you get a little break. You probably got to go cover UNI down at St. Louis this weekend and then get back.
I've got the UNI women on Sunday against Drake, and then their tournament is in Coralville. So if the UNI men make it, my boss will head down to St. Louis, but the UNI women, I'm going to have to go tackle with them over in Coralville when they start their tournaments. It's a busy time of the year.
That's great. Hey, that Extreme Center is a nice place to watch a game. It's a good place.
Absolutely.
And so that'll be a great place to watch NVC women. That's awesome, Chad. Hey, I think great show. I'm sure we'll probably do another one as we get going. Best of luck to your teams this week.
Thank you.
Next week. Appreciate it, man.
Let's meet up next week down at the boys' state.
We're going to. See ya.
Okay. Sounds great. Take care.